about for valuation? Have you used outside third-party company to do valuation? Just confirm what you have thought about the price of a company. Have you done that at all?
I will use certified appraisers.
Okay.
Or refer a business owner to an appraiser when they have like intellectual property or things that I'm not familiar with valuing. So if they have a bunch of patents, then those patents may have additional value. And, that's not, I don't feel like I'm qualified to really determine the value of those patents. So that's something where I would send out to an appraiser or recommend that they get a formal appraisal done. When it comes to just determining the market value or what I think I can sell a business for, I prefer to do that myself rather than have an appraisal done for a couple of reasons. First off, because even if they've had an appraisal done, I always want to look at it and make sure that it's reasonable, because I've had appraisals that I've been given where, like, one example is a HR consulting firm that I sold where I think they were doing $1 million in gross revenue, just under $1 million in gross revenue. And the appraiser came up with this ridiculous number as a value based on publicly held data. I mean, they go through all of these different methods, right? You've got your income approach and your asset approach and your market approach, and then methods within each of those valuation approaches, and then they weight them. And for whatever reason, this appraiser weighted publicly held data and publicly held companies as the highest weight. And it skewed everything and basically came up with a valuation number that was like a 12 times multiple. Whoa. Well, you don't get 12 times multiples of SDE on a when a business is doing $1 million gross.
Not for HR.
Well, not for anything, typically. I mean, it's, there would have to be a very specific reason. Like maybe you have, again, that goes back to patents and IP, right? So if you have a certain, like a patent that some company, publicly held company wants or something, but it was just an odd situation. And that does happen where sometimes, because the appraisers aren't in the marketplace, so they'll do an appraisal and they'll use all of the right things, but they don't actually sell the businesses. So they don't really necessarily weight things the same way that we would as business brokers. And so, so sometimes you have to have very difficult conversations where you're saying, oh yeah, I'm glad you had a certified appraisal done. That's awesome. And by the way, the number they came up with is just not possible in the market, the actual marketplace. I understand they're telling you that's the market value, but they don't sell businesses, and that's not how things are going to go down, so it could be a tough conversation to have. I've also gone back to appraisals after that, and like in this case, I went back to the appraiser and just said, hey, I think the weighting is off here because, this is a small privately held company that you're weighting highest value on publicly held companies and all of that. And she basically told me she'd redo it as long as the client was willing to pay a fee, pay for the revisions. And I was like, I said, no, that's, the client shouldn't be charged for the revisions because, your appraisal was wrong. I mean, you need to fix it. You just need to fix it. Change your weighting. It's not going to take you that much time. Change your weighting and reproduce the report. So
very interesting.
A little crazy.
Other than intellectual property, copywriting, trademark, are there any other instances where you would, go to an appraiser automatically?
I mean, if I felt like I was not qualified, really, because that's what it comes down to. If I feel like I have a core competency at evaluating the business, I'm just going to do it. myself because I prefer to. It helps me understand the business, how they operate, the types of add backs, what kind of, how do they use, what categories in the business do they, or in the financials do they use for their slush funds? What are the personal expenses they're running through the business? I get to have a lot of conversations and learn a lot about the business and the business owners when I do it myself. And I don't get that benefit when I farm it out to a third party. So I'm not going to farm it out unless I feel for whatever reason that I'm just not competent enough or that I don't have the core competency to do it. So that's kind of it.